Yartle had never been a man who slept deeply. Even as a child, long before he earned his place among the warriors of the Empire, rest had come to him in fragments, light, easily broken, never fully his. Years of conflict had only sharpened that instinct. Campaigns, ambushes, night watches, and the ever-present possibility of attack had conditioned his body to remain alert even in stillness. Sleep, when it came, was a temporary surrender, not a refuge. So it came as no surprise that, despite the exhaustion that weighed heavily on him, his rest did not last. The hammock shifted slightly as his eyes opened. It had been just over an hour, no more. He exhaled quietly and sat up, the woven fabric creaking softly beneath him. The fatigue was still there, lingering in his limbs, but it had dulled enough to allow movement. He ran a hand across his face, grounding himself in the present. And then he noticed it. The scent drifted from the kitchen, rich and unmistakable, carrying with it a sense of order, of something already in progress, already handled. Yartle stood and made his way toward it. As he entered the kitchen, Guadalupe turned slightly to acknowledge him, her movements fluid, unhurried. She stood near the stove, her attention divided between the fire and the food she was preparing. "The food should be ready in about 5 minutes," she said calmly. "Take a seat and drink some of the cacao I just made." Yartle stopped. It took less than a minute of being awake for the second wave of astonishment to hit him. Cacao. His gaze shifted to the cup she had indicated. There was no mistaking it. The rich, dark liquid. The faint bitterness in the air beneath the warmth of its aroma. Cacao was not common. It was not something found in the homes of ordinary people, nor something casually prepared without thought. It was a prized commodity, reserved for nobles, high-ranking warriors, and those favored within the empire's structure. Even he, as an elite warrior, received it sparingly. A reward, a privilege earned through blood and service. And yet here it was, in his home, prepared, casually. His eyes moved back to Guadalupe, a slave, a woman who, by all outward appearances, should have had no access to such things, let alone the knowledge of how to prepare them. And yet she had. There were questions, many of them. How did she know what it was? Where had she learned to make it? Why did she speak of it with such indifference? She turned and handed him a plate, 4 freshly made tortillas and beans. Simple, warm, immediate. Hunger took hold. Yartle accepted the plate without a word and sat. They ate in silence. The unfamiliarity between them lingered, unaddressed, sitting just beneath the surface of the moment. When the food was gone, Guadalupe rose first. She collected the plates and utensils, putting them back into the kitchen without hesitation. She cleaned, organized, and set everything aside with practiced ease. After doing so, Guadalupe politely asked, "Where would we bathe?" Yartle stood. "Come," he said. He led her through to the backyard of the house. A small patch of flowers grew there, simple, scattered, but alive with color. Yartle reached down and gathered a handful. He did not explain why. Beyond the patch, just as the land dipped slightly, a stream ran along the edge of the property. The water moved steadily, clear enough to reveal the stones beneath its surface. He stopped there and turned to her. "We can bathe here," he said. His voice, for reasons he did not examine, was softer than usual. Guadalupe nodded. Then, without hesitation, she stepped closer. Her hands moved to his helmet first. She removed it carefully, lifting it from his head with a steady, deliberate motion. Then his chest plate followed, loosened and set aside with equal care. Yartle did not stop her, did not question it. Her attention shifted. There, a small wound along his right forearm. Not deep, not serious, but fresh enough to draw notice. She reached for it without asking. Her touch was precise, controlled. She cleaned it with water from the stream, her movements steady, unflinching. For a moment, The world narrowed. The battle, the march home, the fire, the screams, the weight of conquest. All of it faded into something distant, something unreal. There was only the sound of water, the presence of another person, close, unguarded. They bathed without speaking. The water carried away the dirt, the blood, the remnants of the day that had brought them here. It left behind something cleaner, not just on the surface, but beneath it. When they were finished, they returned to the house. The silence between them remained, but it had changed. It was no longer unfamiliar. It was simply there. Guadalupe moved first. Back into the kitchen, she resumed her work, cleaning what remained, drying, storing. Every action was efficient, purposeful, as though she had done it 1,000 times before. Yaltal watched. There was something about the way she moved, something that resisted easy understanding. She was not uncertain, not hesitant, not behaving as someone newly taken, newly placed into a life not her own. She adapted, seamlessly. When she finished, she did not linger. She turned and walked toward the sleeping quarters. Yaltal followed, though more slowly. He stood at the threshold as she began to remove her clothing. There was no ceremony to it, no attempt to conceal, no effort to provoke. It was simply done, methodical, unremarkable, as though it were the next logical step in a sequence of events already decided. She lay down on the petate, and then she looked at him. Yaltal remained where he stood. There was a pause, a moment where neither of them moved, neither of them spoke. The air between them shifted, uncertainty, unfamiliarity, something unspoken pressing into the space. Then she broke it. "Yaltal," she said. Her voice was calm. "You didn't ask anyone to become a warrior. You didn't ask anyone to invade Tlaxcala and sack the town I was in. You didn't ask anyone whether or not to kill the town chief, my former owner." The words landed evenly, no anger, no bitterness. "You didn't ask anyone to free me." A pause. "You didn't ask anyone to re-enslave me as your own. Although I did see you had a long talk with your father on our way here." Yaltal's expression did not change, but his attention sharpened. "Perhaps there was a formal negotiation of some kind that I'm not aware of," she continued. "In any case." She shifted slightly, resting more comfortably. "You don't look like the type who has ever asked for permission." "So the hesitation you are feeling in this moment," she said, her voice steady, "is being brought on entirely by the fact that you are behaving against your natural inclinations. You have always done what you wanted to do." Another pause. "Why stop now?" Yaltal stared at her, and for the first time since he had found her in that tent, he allowed himself to fully acknowledge it. This woman was not simple, not predictable, not contained by the expectations he had placed upon her. Over the course of a single day, she had done something few others ever had. She had unsettled him. Not through defiance, not through resistance, but through clarity. Through an understanding that seemed to move ahead of him, anticipating, observing, dissecting without effort. He inhaled slowly. Adaptation. That was what this required. Just as he had adapted on the battlefield, within the ranks, within the structure of command, he would adapt here. His composure returned, not forced, but chosen. He stepped forward. Whatever uncertainty had lingered in that moment collapsed. And as he moved to meet her where she lay, his actions were no longer guided by hesitation, but by the same certainty that had defined him in every other aspect of his life. Direct, decisive, unquestioned.